Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, find the key insights, basically giving you a shortcut to getting informed. Today, we're diving into just one source, but it's incredibly powerful. It's a chapter that puts us right inside the head of a man accused of murder, watching his own trial. From the dock, it's unsettling, definitely a unique way to see things.
Exactly. This isn't just, a report on a trial. It's really exploring what happens when someone feels totally, utterly disconnected from the system that's deciding their fate. It makes you question, judgment itself, really, especially when someone's inner life or maybe the lack of one people perceive becomes the main point.
Right. So our mission today is to understand his view, the arguments made against him, how he was defended, and just his astonishing internal state through it all. Okay, let's unpack this chilling scenario. So right off the bat, what's really striking is how much he feels like an outsider at his own trial. He actually says, everything was happening without my participation. My fate was being decided without anyone so much as asking my opinion. He even felt like jumping in, but his lawyer just tells him, just keep quiet. What's your immediate reaction to that level of detachment?
Yeah, it's such a profound detachment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really visceral. He sees both lawyers, his own included, arguing the case as if it had nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
And think about this. He's potentially facing death, right? But he admits he got bored. During the prosecutor's big speech, he says, only bits and pieces, a gesture or a long but isolated tirade caught my attention. It just completely challenges how we think someone should react, when facing something so huge. He's like a spectator.
A spectator at his own potential execution. Yeah, that's chilling. Okay, so we've got this profound detachment established. Then the story moves to the prosecution and their really dramatic attempt to define his soul. The prosecutor argues premeditation, right? But he wants to prove it through the blinding clarity of the facts and also, quote, the dim light cast by the mind of this criminal soul. It's almost philosophical for a murder trial, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just laying out actions. They were painting this detailed picture of, insensitivity, coldness. They brought up details like him not knowing his mother's age, going swimming the next day, the movie with Marie, taking her home, and his whole involvement with Raymond,
Yeah.
writing the letter, the confrontation on the beach, asking for the gun, going back alone, and firing those extra 4 shots described as calmly, point-blank thoughtfully, as it were. Every detail becomes a brushstroke in this portrait of a calculated killer. It's less what he did, more who they claimed he was.
And they even used his intelligence against him. The prosecutor points out he knows how to answer. He knows the value of words, basically saying he knew exactly what he was doing. The accused himself notes this irony, how his good qualities could become crushing accusations. It's a strange kind of logic twist.
It is, and it's a very effective tactic, shifting the focus from the crime itself to his perceived moral character. The prosecution really hammered on the lack of remorse. Never, gentlemen, not once did this man show emotion over his heinous offense. And what's really striking, maybe the core of it, is the accused admits this. He says he didn't feel much remorse, that he'd never been able to truly feel remorse for anything. He was always just thinking about what was coming next. That gap between what society expects emotionally and his reality, it's huge.
Which then leads into this really disturbing territory where the prosecutor claims he literally peered into the man's soul and just found nothing.
Yeah.
He concludes the accused didn't have a soul, that none of the usual moral principles that govern men's hearts were reachable in him. This emptiness, he calls it an abyss threatening to swallow up society. I mean, how do you even begin to defend against that? An accusation of having no soul.
That's the crux of it, isn't it? It's almost impossible. The prosecutor took it even further. He linked the accused's supposed callousness about his mother's death to another potential crime, parricide. He argues that being morally guilty of killing his mother effectively severs someone from society, just like killing a father does. It's a very symbolic connection he's drawing. He essentially frames the trial as this moral battle, asking for the man's head, because looking at him, all he sees is a monster. It turns the accused into this symbol of societal threat rather than just, a person on trial for a specific act.
Wow. Okay, so after that intense speech, the accused finally gets asked if he wants to add anything, and his response is just incredibly brief. I never intended to kill the Arab. That's it. And when they push him for why, he just blurts out, it was because of the son. And the courtroom laughs. It's almost funny in its absurdity, right? But it just powerfully highlights that disconnect again. His world versus theirs.
Absolutely. It perfectly shows the massive gap between his his subjective experience, and the rational logic the court demands. And you see his lawyer struggling with this, too. The accused notices the lawyer starts using I when talking about him. He felt it was a way to exclude me even further, reduce me to nothing, and, in a sense, substitute himself for me. Like the lawyer had to become the normal human version for the jury.
Right. The lawyer does try to counter that soulless attack directly. He claims he looked into the accused's soul and found, the opposite. An honest man, a steadily employed, tireless worker, loyal, well-liked, and sympathetic to the misfortunes of others. Even a model son. It's a total narrative flip.
It's a classic counter-narrative, isn't it? Trying to build an image completely opposite to the prosecution's monster. But interestingly, the accused himself feels his lawyer just isn't as good as the prosecutor. He notes a glaring omission. The lawyer never mentioned the funeral, which was, of course, a key point the prosecution had used against him. He describes the whole defense as just confusing, a colorless, swirling river. Ultimately, the lawyer pleads for leniency, arguing you shouldn't execute an honest, hardworking man because he lost control for one moment. He asked for extenuating circumstances because of the supposed eternal remorse the crime caused, but that's a feeling the accused explicitly says he doesn't have. So the defense is kind of imposing an emotional script he just doesn't follow.
So as things are wrapping up, the trial's nearing its end. The accused is still internally, just miles away. He hears the jury questions. Guilty of murder, premeditated, extenuating circumstances. His lawyer, despite everything, seems oddly optimistic, suggests maybe a few years in prison or at hard labor. He even explains his tactics, like not filing certain motions to avoid annoying the jury and how appeals are tough to win anyway. There's this weird practical optimism from the lawyer, while the accused has just completely checked out internally.
That disconnect, yeah, it really is the defining thing here. While waiting for the verdict, his mind isn't on the trial. It's on the smells of summer, the part of town I loved, a certain evening sky, Marie's dresses and the way she laughed, sensory details, life outside. He feels the utter pointlessness of whatever I was doing there. He just wants to go back to his cell, sleep. He even sees Marie smile at him at one point, but notes he couldn't smile back because his heart felt nothing. It's just this profound emotional flatness, even facing the ultimate consequence.
And then the moment comes. The wait is over. A bell rings. The judge announces, in what the accused calls bizarre language that he is, to have my head cut off in a public square in the name of the French people. And his reaction is just chillingly calm. He observes people looking at him with a look of consideration. When they ask him if he has anything to say, he just says, no. That's it. Stark. Unbelievable, almost.
So where does that leave us? What does this whole extraordinary account really tell us?
Well, it forces you to confront the very nature of judgment, doesn't it? Is justice really served when someone's condemned not just for what they did, but for their perceived lack of a soul, for not showing emotions the right way? It really raises the question, can the legal system even prosecute a state of being, an internal void? Can that be a crime in itself? Yeah, this deep dive definitely leaves you with that unsettling thought that someone could be judged, condemned, sentenced to death, all while feeling like they weren't even really involved, like his actual internal reality was just irrelevant to the whole process. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, about how little we can sometimes know about what's going on inside someone else from the outside.
Exactly. And maybe the deepest question it poses is this. What happens when the courtroom tries to judge character, not just actions? When the absence of certain feelings becomes as damning or more damning than the act itself? It really challenges us, I think, to reflect on our own assumptions about empathy, about responsibility, about that huge, often invisible space between what we see and what someone else truly feels, or perhaps what they don't feel. It makes you wonder, how much of the complexity of being human can ever really fit neatly into the boxes the law provides.